Hey friends, Cold Brew Chick here, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my acid reflux story, and it's kind of also the story of how Cold Brew Chick even came to fruition. I got into cold brew, or specifically more so, let's actually take it back further. I got into coffee when I was 19 years old. I had just left Cal State Fullerton. I was going to be a musical theater major, go to Broadway, and then decided that was not the path for me. So I came back home after one semester and found myself kind of in a bit of crossroads of what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to pursue. And my parents, to this day, drink Starbucks vanilla coffee. They brew it in a regular Mr. Coffee pot, and that's been the coffee that they've drank forever. And so they would make that every morning. I'd come down, and one day I just decided to try it. I was never a coffee person. I'd always drink tea. As a senior, you're usually encouraged to drink tea for your vocal health. So tea was always my go-to, but I thought, hey, I'll try coffee. And one sip and I just fell in love. I loved the bitterness, I loved the taste of it, and this was the drink for me. So I started drinking hot coffee, and I never added milk or sugar to it. I liked the taste of just black coffee. I found myself going, to Starbucks and getting just black hot coffees, and just was kind of exploring what it was like to have coffee in my life. And I loved the caffeine high, I loved everything about it. But a couple years later, I kind of noticed something. At this point, I was at San Diego State. I decided to major in nutrition, and so I transferred there. And when I would have my cup of hot coffee in the morning, I would notice that maybe an hour or two later, I would have some acid reflux. I would notice this kind of warmth, this kind of burning in my chest. And being in a healthcare profession, pursuing healthcare, I knew that acid reflux was not necessarily a good thing to have all the time. And I also knew that it can be pretty subjective. There's of course certain foods and certain things that can trigger it, certain reasons why people have acid reflux, but it's pretty individualized. And for me, it was pretty much only coffee that was causing my acid reflux. None of the other foods or other common, triggers did it for me. And so I found myself kind of bummed. I didn't want to give up coffee, I tried playing around with iced coffee, and being in San Diego with our climate, I preferred iced coffee, and it would help a little bit with my acid reflux, but I would still notice that warmth, and I didn't want to develop a relationship with a Tums bottle. I didn't want to have one every time I had coffee, and I knew a long-term use of an antacid like that can actually be pretty bad for your GI system. And being in the nutrition world, right, you want your GI system to be in tip-top shape, because essentially when it is, it's going to intake and help us utilize all the nutrition that we take. So I found myself essentially at crossroads. What do I do? Do I continue to drink this drink that I love and kind of deal with the side effects, or do I cut it out for my health and just be sad? But lucky for me, around this time, there was this drink that I was noticing on social media called Cold Brew Coffee. And what intrigued me about it was, yes, it was a cold coffee drink, which I like. It was supposed to be smoother than regular coffee. It was supposed to have more caffeine. But the key thing that stood out to me was that it had lower acid. And I thought, I wonder if this has lower acid, if I will be able to tolerate it better. And so at this time, a social media influencer that I was following had posted about a coffee shop not too far from San Diego State called Wholesome Coffee. And what was really cool is not only did they have cold brew, they had cold brew creations. And the one that stood out to me was a Nutella cold brew. And I thought, I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna go try out this cold brew and we'll see. So I'll never forget, I went down there, I just got a regular black cold brew, I took a sip, and my life essentially changed. And it sounds dramatic to say that, right? We talk about, oh my God, my life changed when I had one sip of a drink. But for me, it really did, because not only did it heal my relationship with coffee, it healed essentially my acid reflux, and eventually took me down this journey that I'm on now with Cold Brew Chick. That first sip that I took, it was amazing, because not only was it the smoothest coffee that I've ever had, I didn't notice that kind of bitter aftertaste that you get, but also my acid reflux afterwards didn't exist. It didn't happen. I could drink this and have no problems. The other thing too that I remember is the caffeine high that I had afterwards was unlike anything I'd ever had with coffee before. I felt like a light switch had gone off in my brain, and I found myself being more productive, more energy. It was amazing. So yes, in many ways it was a life-changing experience. And ever since then, I got into the cold brew world. I started making my own cold brew at home using a French press. I started doing some research. Went to Target and got different coffee beans, Starbucks flavored coffee beans, and was playing around with making different cold brews at home. And found fast forward about a year, I found myself in the summer semester at San Diego State, about to graduate here soon. And a part of my major, being foods and nutrition, is we have to do a project of some sorts. And I didn't want to do kind of the typical projects that you usually did. You maybe teamed up with like a food bank, something like that. I wanted to do something about cold brew. I thought, there has to be something out there, a reason why, for me, this helped with my acid reflux. And so I went to my professor, kind of told him what I wanted to do, and luckily he was very open and said, hey, go have fun, go learn, and tell me what you got. And so my thought process at the time, being a college student, thought, well, I'll just go online, I'll read some articles, and then I'll create like a PowerPoint presentation. But I quickly learned that the information that I was looking for about cold brew was not out there. It was very much basic cold brew 101 type of stuff. And so I had the idea instead, I said, you know what, let me go to every coffee shop in San Diego, try every cold brew, and along the way talk to the people that make the cold brew, talk to the roasters, talk to the owners, talk to the baristas, and learn from them about cold brew. And that's essentially how Cold Brew Chick was born. It was a school project. I had no intentions of necessarily turning it into a blog or a brand or anything like that. I just wanted to pass my project. But I found as I started to, make my posts just to document my progress, there wasn't really anybody else doing this out there. And yes, cold brew was very popular and you could see it out and about, but no one was just focusing solely on cold brew, let alone as something that could be as transformative as it was for me in healing my relationship with coffee. So fast forward now, at this spot in time, Cold Brew Chick, it's been 4 years, and I'm actually now at a place where I can drink hot coffee with no problems. And I think a big part of that was I exclusively drank cold brew for a good 2 years. Only drank cold brew. I would not drink hot coffee at all. And I think part of that helped kind of heal my acid in my stomach and recognize, hey, we're not gonna be having this food anymore, and just so it kind of gave it time to rebalance itself, right? So I think that was a big part of it. The other part of it too was that I kind of learned different food combinations that worked for me and didn't work for me. And there was never really any specific food that caused acid reflux for me. I just kind of noticed, hey, if I have coffee with this food, it can make things a little bit worse. And so when I did introduce hot coffee back in, I would play around and see if I have hot coffee with this food, what happens. And eventually I discovered, for example, like hot coffee and yogurt. Those are two things that I can't eat, because when I eat those things together, I am going to get a little bit of a reaction to it, right? And so if you're somebody that is struggling with acid reflux, if you're struggling in your relationship with coffee, if you want to heal, if you want to explore cold brew, you're in the right spot, and I'm here for you. But this is essentially my story of how Cold Brew Chick got started, how I essentially healed my acid reflux and have healed my relationship with coffee to be in this place now where I have no barriers, no restrictions to coffee, and it's the most wonderful thing. So I'm glad to have you along for the journey.